If you want secure access to your home server while you're away from home Wi-Fi, this is the clean way to do it. Today, I'm setting up WireGuard in a QNAP QVPN service and then connecting from Windows, Mac, iPhone, iPad and Android. And we'll prove it works by opening SMB file shares through that VPN tunnel. Remote access can be tricky and beginners often end up exposing services directly to the internet. With a VPN, you connect securely first, then your home network is available like you're at home. WireGuard is lightweight, it's fast, and it's great on phones. I'm only exposing one UDP port for the VPN. I'm not exposing SMB. That's important. What you need is a QNAP running QVPN service with WireGuard support. You need WireGuard app running on each client device, and you need one router setting. Forward the WireGuard UDP port to your QNAP server. Okay then, let's get into it. The first step is to configure the home server. So I'm running a QNAP server. I'll walk you through how I'm doing it. Your server may be different, but the principle is still the same, and the WireGuard VPN setup and configuration should be very similar. What we need to do is go to the QNAP server, log in, go into control panel, and then network and virtual switch, and then look at interfaces. And you can see here there's an IP address. If we click these three dots, click on configure, we can see that there's a connection type. This connection is assigned by DHCP IP server, it's automatic. So we need to look at this server and see how this 192.168.191 is being assigned. So to do that, we need to log into our router. I've got a BT router at 192.168.1.254, which is what we just saw in the QNAP interface adapter settings. And we need to go to advanced settings. It does require a password. Now we need to look at my network, see what's configured in here. If we look at address table, these are all of the currently assigned devices. Find your home server in this list and select it. IP address 192.168.191. It says always use this IP address. It says no at the moment, so we need to click that to yes. Save that. Your router and your network addressing may be different, but just make sure it's always assigned the same IP address, because that's important when you're setting up your WireGuard VPN tunnel later. What we need to do now also is just check to make sure that our subnet is always 255.255.255.0. IP4 configuration. You can see here, this is the gateway address of our router. A subnet mask. This is what we need to make sure is it's set to 255.255.255.0. What we now need to do is we go back to our QNAP server interface. If you go to App Center, and then in here you want to look for QVPN Service here. If it's not installed, you can install it, and then once it's installed, you can open that. Once you're in the QVPN Service 3, this is what the interface looks like. I was running the QBelt VPN service. That hasn't been working, so I'm going to disable that. And what I'm going to do instead is install the WireGuard host. So first thing is to enable it, give it a name. I'm going to call it WireGuard QNAP host. Oh, doesn't look like you can use underscores. Let's try a dash. There we go. Key pairs are generated automatically. Need to set the listen port here, 51820. That's the standard configuration for WireGuard. It's suggesting here 198.1871/24. That's fine. I'm going to keep it like that. No reason to change that. So we can apply to save that. So if we go back here now to overview, you should see here in the center, active local VPN servers WireGuard. That shows that the server is currently running. Now what we need to do is jump back to our router configuration, and what we need to do in here is jump to the firewall settings, advanced settings again, and then we have this section. This is your interface will look different depending on your router. This is a BT router, so this is what the interface looks like for me. You need to find the location where you can enable port forwarding. For this interface, it's via firewall tab. So I've disabled this QBelt VPN server, so I'm going to turn that off, delete that, because I'm not likely to be using that anymore. Confirm that it's deleted. Now we need to create a new port forwarding rule. So I'm going to call this QNAP WireGuard host. So we can either assign an IP address or select a device. I'm going to just enter an IP address, 192.168.191. So this is the IP address of our server. This is the static IP address that we checked just a moment ago. Set that, and then we want to select the external port, which is 51820. There's no range, it's just a single port, so both settings will be the same. And same with the internal port, so we're redirecting the external port 51820 to the internal port 51820. This is the port we just assigned to the WireGuard host. So if you assigned a different port, make sure that you're forwarding that same port number. And the protocol we're interested in is UDP. So what we need to do now is add that. There's a new rule down here. Just check that this is correct. If there's something wrong, you can click X and then try again up here, and then add it again. This looks fine to me, so I'm going to save those changes. Just confirms here that it's saving the changes. So now we set up the host. The port's been forwarded, so we can reach our WireGuard host from outside of our internal network, i.e. from the internet. We can close this now, we don't need to use this anymore. And then what we need to do now is go back to our QVPN service and then start to add the clients. Now we've completed the host setup, let's look at setting up the first clients. To make this a bit easier, because I'm installing across multiple devices, I've created a simple client configuration file, which looks like this. So there's two parts to this. There's the interface, which is how the client, which is this IP address, connects to the server, which is this IP address. And there's a private key, and there's also a public key, which is generated by the client. I'll show you that in a moment. And then there's the details of the client itself and how that is allowed to connect to the server. So a public key here, this is generated by the server, and as it says here, replace this public key with the one generated by the common WireGuard host on the server. It's the same for all clients. And then add your DNS name here or your public IP address. Again, we'll do that in a moment. So first thing we need to do is go and download the WireGuard client app. Here we go. So just go and download that, install it, and then when you run it, you'll see this window. And what you see here, these are your VPN connections in this window here, and this is the detail here, which shows you the unique configuration for that client. Before we do that though, let's update this public key. So if we go back here, you'll see on the WireGuard host, you've got this public key here, and next to it, you can copy that. So let's go in here, select and replace that. And what this is saying here is that allowed IP addresses. So we are allowed internal IP addresses in the range 192.168.1.1 up to 192.168.1.255, and the interface IP addresses from 198.18.7.1 to 198.18.7.255. What we also need to do here is add in endpoint. So your endpoint is either your public IP address, which looks like this here, or your or you'll have a DNS name which looks something like this. If you're running a QNAP server like I am, to find that you can go to your My QNAP Cloud, and then what you can see here, there are various settings here. Access control, DDNS is enabled. So this is what you're interested in, is the DDNS. If you click that, then you can see two things. You can see what your DDNS name is. This is my name here. Or what your public IP address, which is this one here. You can use either of these. This public IP address is likely to change over time. So my recommendation is you copy your DDNS name, and then if you go back to the client configuration here, just drop that in here like so. The other thing we'll need to change in a moment is this IP address here, because that will be automatically generated when we create a peer on the host. And the private key here also will be automatically generated in a moment when we create the new client configuration. So let's save that down. Let's go back to our WireGuard client on Windows. So what we're going to do is create the new client. So click the down arrow, add an empty tunnel. That generates a private key and a public key. Give it a name. I'm going to call this Paul Dell 7490. I'm going to copy that public key. For now, just save that. What we're going to do is jump back to our server, go to WireGuard, add a new peer, give it a name, give it the same name as we just gave the client profile, so Paul Dell 7490, then we know it's that same. Paste that public key in here. I would go in the advanced settings and increase this persistent keep alive up to 25 seconds. The reason I'm doing that is because I know if you're out and about and you're on a 5G network, on the mobile network, it can be a bit laggy. So you want to give the client as much time as possible to keep that connection alive. So increase that up to 25 seconds just means it's more likely to keep that connection alive. Hit apply, and that saves that client. Now that the peer is set up on the WireGuard server, let's switch back to the Windows laptop and continue the configuration on the WireGuard client. Select it, edit that file. Now what we need to do is pick up our config file from here. Copy all of this. Go back to our client. We need to keep this private key at the top. So what we will do, copy this private key here. Copy that down to here. And then I can delete this. So we replace the private key. We also need to change the IP address here to match the one that was just automatically generated by when we set up the peer here. We just expand this a little bit, we'll be able to see that full address. 198.18.7.2. 198.18.7, put that to a 2. And then the rest of this can stay as it is. DDNS, so that's our internal server address. Public key, this is the one that was generated by the server. We already updated that in our standard config file here. And that's going to be the same for all of our clients. Allowed IPs is going to be the same across all clients. And then the DDNS endpoint is going to be the same across all clients. Save that. You can see now it's populated with more detail. If I now click activate here, what we want to see is that turn into a shield with a tick in it, green shield with a tick. And if we go back and look at our host, you can see now here we're transmitting and receiving data. So that's telling me that we've got a connection between the client and the host, and it's a solid, stable connection. If we click overview here, you can also see that connection in this overview. If we go back to our client, deactivate. So that's the first peer set up on the server and the client installed, configured and tested on the Windows laptop. Next, we'll switch over to the Mac Mini. We'll follow the exact same process. We'll download, install and configure the WireGuard client. Then we'll test it to make sure everything is working as expected. Same process as before then. We'll do this as quickly as we can. Let's go to WireGuard. It's running up here. We can manage tunnels. We'll add a new one. Add an empty tunnel. Call this Paul Mac Mini. Let's grab that public key again. Whoops. Grab that public key. Copy that. Add it in here. If you haven't seen my standard notes video, take a look. It's an amazing tool. It makes working across different devices such a breeze. So check it out. Let's add that in here. We can save that temporarily. What we can now do is switch over to the Windows laptop again and add that as a new peer. So let's call it Paul-Mac Mini. "25 seconds. Let's go and grab that key. It's here, look already. That's a great tool. Great tool. Paste that in there. Everything's fine. Make a note of the IP address. It's 7.5. Switch back over to the Mac Mini and then we edit this one again. Now what we can do is go and find our client file. Let's open with our text edit file again. Grab all of this, paste into here. Just copy this down, cut and paste it. IP address, we just need to update that one. 192.18.7.5. Yeah, I think in the client config default file it was 5 anyway, just by coincidence. So we'll save that. We activate. Should show active. We go and look at the Windows computer now, look at the server, and the WireGuard host is saying that we're connected on the Mac Mini, Paul-Mac Mini, transmitting and receiving packets. Great. Windows laptop setup, Mac Mini set up, 4 profiles so far. Now let's set up on the iPhone and then finally the Android phone, Samsung S20 FE. We'll install on the iPhone. I'll enable the screen recorder on the iPhone. I'll put it on the screen so you can follow along. Okay, first step, let's go and install WireGuard. App Store. Let's hit the download button. That installed pretty quick. WireGuard's already available there. Let's launch WireGuard. First thing we want to do is add a tunnel. Create from file or archive. And we'll look for that file, which is in here. Allow, ask for a passcode. And let's set up. All we need to do now is go in here. We click edit. grab that public key, paste that into our standard notes app. Then I can go and create the pair on the laptop. Let's go in here, add pair, or iPhone, public key, and grab it from here. Careful when you're copying because it seems to pick up the extra space at the end, which we don't want. Paste that in there. Make sure that our persistent keep alive is increased to 25 seconds. We're up to 7.6 now, so we'll change that in our client in just a second. Hit apply. So there you go. Currently not connected. Let's go back to our client on our phone. We need to edit the address here to 6. Looks like that's now configured. Let's jump back here. Let's activate the connection on the iPhone. Wait for something to happen here. There we go. Looks like we're connected. We're transmitting and we're receiving. Let's disconnect the VPN. Okay, so that's the iPhone setup. Looks good to me. Next, let's not bother with the iPad because that's identical to the iPhone. Let's do the final thing, which is to stop recording on this camera. And now I'll install the WireGuard client on the Samsung S20 FE Android phone. So now I've switched cameras. I'm actually using my iPhone 15 to record this, so I can then run the screen recorder and complete the WireGuard client install on the Android phone. So first step, install the WireGuard client. Let's go to the Play Store. Click install. It's installed, so open it. Add a tunnel using the button below. So what we want to do here, like we did with the iPhone and the iPad, just go and grab that client file, import from file or archive. There it is, client.config. Done. It says it's imported. You select that. What we need to do is regenerate the public key. So click edit at the top there, hit that, refresh, it's done. Copy that public key before we'll save it to standard notes. There we go, that's saved there. Let's just go back and rename this. Work, play, have fun. S20. Tried to keep the file names short because I think the Android phone in particular is a bit sensitive about the length of the name. So I've kept them all short for good reason. Let's save that for now. We'll have to come back in a minute and just check the IP address. Let's switch back to the laptop. Let's add that pair. Work, play, have fun. S20. Go and grab that key. There it is. Drop that in there. Make sure we've got a 25-second persistent keep alive. Our IP address is 198.18.78, so 7.8. Let's go and change that on the Samsung phone. So if we edit this again, go on there, change that to 198.18.7.8. Everything else is correct, so we'll just save that. Successfully saved. Let's go back. Let's enable it. WireGuard request to set up connection allows you to blah 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 blah. Yeah, okay that. So you can see at the top got a connection, and on the Windows laptop you can see here we're transmitting and receiving data. So there we go. Okay, so as we can see here on the screen, we've installed the clients on all of these devices. So 2 profiles on the Windows laptop, 2 profiles on the Mac Mini, the iPhone, the iPad, and the Samsung mobile phone. What we now need to do is make sure that we can connect to that server through the VPN tunnel. We'll start with the Windows laptop, but what we'll do to make sure we actually are using an external connection, I'll use the mobile 5G network connection on the iPhone. I'll set this up as a hotspot and we can connect to the phone on the laptop. Before we do that though, as a tip, let me show you something interesting. Let's go back to the client config file here. I just want to show you something important. If you remember, when we set up our peer, these are the allowed network connections on that VPN tunnel. 192.168.1.0. So this is the range from 192.168.1.1 all the way up to 192.168.1.254. All of those internal connections will be allowed on that VPN tunnel. And you need to make sure that you navigate using the IP address of the server rather than the alias ID. What do I mean by that? Let me show you here. So if I go to my PC here, on the internal network, you can see the name of my server is here. If I double click on there, and then we can see the shared folders that are available on that server. What we can also do is we can navigate to that server using the internal IP address of the server, which is 192.168.1.91 for my server. Yours may well be different. And you can see the share folders are exactly the same. Now, what I said a moment ago is the VPN tunnel needs to see the IP address of the server, otherwise it will not allow you to connect. When I create my original shortcuts, like it says in this one here, I use the alias name for the server. So this shortcut is at hacknet-cloud. What we need to do is change that. And the way we do that is you can either recreate them separately, so you have 2 shortcuts for each share, or do what I did, and I went in here and I deleted any shortcut that used the server name and then reconnected it. I've already done it here, look, using the IP address. So just make sure any shortcuts you've got created are set using the IP address of your server rather than the alias, i.e. the name of the server. Once that's set, then you shouldn't get any problems with access through the VPN tunnel. Let's move to the next step then. What we'll do, I'll set up this personal hotspot on my iPhone now. So I'll enable the screen recording on here, and then I can share that and you can follow along. Settings, personal hotspot is on. There we go. Then what we need to do is connect here on the laptop. There's my iPhone 15. Let's connect to that. We should see on the screen recording that personal hotspot connection is enabled, telling us we're connected, we're secured. Okay, so at the moment the VPN is disabled, i.e. inactive here. So when we try and access our shortcuts now, we should see it doesn't work. suggesting already that it's not going to work because we're seeing this activity timer spinny circle thing. I don't know what it's called. Like spinny circle waiting icon. Okay, we had a refresh then, so let's come down here. Let's look at the network. Look at our PC. So you can see here, look, all of these shortcuts have got an X, which means that we're now disconnected from the server. Let's go to our WireGuard client. Make sure we've got the right profile selected. Choose activate. It's activating. We've got the green shield with the white tick inside here. Let's now refresh this page. And we can see straight away, we can now get access to our file shares. Let's do a simple test. So let's export this file to our shared folder on the server here. Save that. And we're done. Simple as that. If you get an error here when you try and connect, just check, like I said, that you're connecting using the IP address rather than the alias name of the server. So what you might need to do, if you are using the alias previously and you change to using the IP address, when you click to connect, it may ask you to enter your credentials again, which is your name and password to access your server. I've already done that, so I'm not going to do it again here. So what we'll do now, we'll disconnect the Windows laptop from the iPhone, and then I'll do a final check. I'll connect the Mac Mini to the iPhone, and we'll do the same test just to make sure we can see the server. Okay, so this is the next step. We need to test the connection between the Mac Mini and the QNAP server, and we'll do that using the personal hotspot on the iPhone again. I won't do the screen recording of the hotspot, but we should be able to see on the Mac Mini that we're connected. First thing then, let's switch to the Mac. Turn on the personal hotspot on the iPhone. I can see that's running now. Let's go here, pause iPhone 15. I can see there's a connection on the iPhone, that's good. Let's run WireGuard. And we'll just activate. And what we should see is a green dot up here, showing that the connection is active, and then we should start to see some data packets being sent and received down here. What we need to do now is just go to our server. Looks like we've got connections here already. Let's go to this one here. Make sure we can see. Loading. While that's loading, I'll go to the Windows laptop, and this is connected to the Wi-Fi directly to the server. Let's open up a folder on the server. Let's use the folder here. Let's make a new folder. There we are. We can see it's just updated here. And what we'll do, we'll just create a simple, let's copy a file across from here. Find a small one. This one's fairly small, 37 meg. Let's drag that across, drop it in here. Now obviously we're on the 5G mobile network, so the upload is going to be pretty slow. I can see here we've got 5G, but there's only 1 bar signal strength. We can already see on the Windows laptop that file started to upload. Wi-Fi connection in this office is awful. The 5G mobile connection is pretty bad, but actually it's sometimes better than trying to connect directly to the Wi-Fi. Oh, here we go. Looks like we're nearly done. Progress bar is updated on the Mac Mini. Let's have a look where we are on the Windows laptop. 35 meg. There we go. Job done. Brilliant. That worked really well. Let's go to the Windows laptop. Let's add a new file. Let's do this easy. Let's just add a text document here. Test file. Uploading this to the Mac Mini. Let's save that. So already we can see the test file here on the Mac Mini. Let's just drag it from there to the desktop. And we can see that that's files transferred immediately. Let's open it up. There we go. So Mac Mini connects nice and smoothly through the WireGuard client to the WireGuard host on the QNAP server. Just quickly open the QNAP server. We can see here, look, work, play, have fun, Mac Mini. Last handshake was over almost 2 minutes ago. Transmit and receive packets here. So everything's working as expected. Okay, let's close all this down. Let's disconnect the WireGuard. Disconnect the VPN tunnel. We'll exit WireGuard on here. We'll switch back to the internal Wi-Fi. Disable the personal hotspot on the iPhone. Okay, that's it for this video. That's WireGuard configured on the home server and all the clients running. And we've also got SMB file shares working through that VPN tunnel. If you're having problems with your connection, there's 3 key things that you can check. Check your DNS or public IP is set correctly. Make sure your router UDP port is forwarded, and also check that you haven't got any firewall rules specific to your router. If you can connect to your host server, but file sharing won't work, check that you're trying to connect using IP address, not the host name. Make sure that your IP routing configuration is common between your host and your clients, and make sure the share path is correct. The other thing is mobile network connections can be a bit tricky. MTU tweaks can often help if you see dropouts, so look into that if you need to. If you get stuck, let me know what device you're trying to connect with and where it failed. If you found this video useful, click that like button and add a comment if you want to. All that's left for me to say now is thank you for watching this video. Take care and have fun. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next one.